Honorable Minister, we have a very important presentation, very quick presentation for you. We have with us Jacqueline Isaac, who is an international human rights lawyer and the Vice President of Road of Success.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Powerful. To see you, Minister, here today, it's very powerful. It's a statement on how you can use your position in government to shift the world. And it all begins with a story. It began with your story. Your story shifted the way the world sees Brazil today in film and how females take a lead. So thank you. So I'm here today in Cannes. I have great friends here in the audience. And I was born and raised in California. My mother, though, and father are Egyptian. And my mother, who's amazing, all mothers are amazing, she has a show. And that show reaches 60 million Arabic-speaking people across the globe. My father has an orchestra. And he's also using music to bridge the gap between many worlds. I'm a lawyer, so what do I have to do with Cannes? What do I have to do with film? What do I have to do with storytelling? Well, I learned from my mother and my father. I'm just going to remove myself from the podium. I learned from my mother and father that there is so much power in storytelling. And that is my question that I pose to all of you today. What if a story can change the world? What if that very story is the miracle that God has given us from heaven to shift society, to change everything? That's been my experience. Storytelling. Storytelling transforms families. It affects how women, the pillars of society, can shift how they're looked at in their community. And therefore the nation changes, and therefore the world changes. See, a story, if we utilize the gift that has been given from heaven to us, we will understand that we can take that story and affect every sphere of influence. Education, as the minister said today, government, and the way the government is viewing women today. Media has power. So I'm going to tell you my story. My story begins in the war zones. I was in Iraq. After living in Egypt for a few years, becoming a lawyer, my mother starting a foundation called Roads of Success, she heard about a war. The war was in Iraq and in Syria. I'm sure you all remember on the news the stories of ISIS, the terrorists who took girls and women, enslaved them, tortured them, raped them. Most of them were children, as young as your own daughters. They were sitting at home, doing their homework, maybe an extracurricular dance, song, and one moment shifted everything for them. One moment, ISIS came, took these precious daughters and tortured them, enslaved them, imprisoned them, killed their fathers and their brothers in front of their own eyes. They saw it, eyewitness. And here I was with my mom because we saw the story. Again, it always goes to the story. We saw the story on the news, and my mom said, let's go to Iraq. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can shift things. We got to Iraq. We saw so many people fleeing ISIS, leaving their towns, going to the top of Sinjar Mountain. They can't escape because ISIS is coming after them. The other girls that we talked about are now imprisoned. They're sexually abused. They're violated. And we're here thinking, what do we do? What do we do? So we used what we had. which I challenge each one of you to use what you have. What I had was a legal degree. I'm a lawyer, so I was using advocacy to understand what was happening and to go home and tell the stories in Congress and Parliament and so forth. My mom had a TV show, but we also had a humanitarian organization. So we took containers of humanitarian aid. How did we get those containers? By people like you. Women, families, taking clothes, brand new clothes, folding them up, putting love messages on the clothes, sending it to Iraq, which was a very, very dangerous journey to get the container to Iraq. We were afraid that ISIS was actually going to take the container in the midst of the row. All this to say, we get there, we get to Iraq, and we're trying to meet the girls and women who were taken and put in ISIS captivity. But stigma was making these girls who were coming out of captivity kill themselves. They were so afraid of coming back into their community and being rejected that they were actually committing suicide. So my mom and I cannot reach these girls. And we get to an elevator the night before we were to return home. And there's a woman, and she had files. And she hears my Egyptian accent. And she says, "Why are you here? What are you doing here?" I said, "I want to help." She said, "You want to help? These are the stories." And she's holding the stories. She said, "I'm going to introduce you to the very first group of girls that came out of captivity. Come meet them at the park tomorrow morning." So we're on our way out. Things shift. We were with the girls. We're sitting at the park. And they're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful smiles. They had the power to smile in the midst of everything they went through. And we started laughing together. We started talking together. And what always unites is music. We started singing together very famous Egyptian songs. And then it happened, the moment. A young girl, 14 years old. She comes and she latches on to my arm. And she goes, "Will you share my story? Can you tell my story to the whole world? Please." I said, "What do you want me to do?" She said, "Just record. Get your phone out." So I get my phone out. I ask someone to record. And she raises her hand. And she looks at the camera very boldly. And she says, "Whether I live or whether I die, I will save my sisters out of captivity. You have a responsibility." With her finger, "You have a responsibility. Save us." And that was it. I took it. So now I have a responsibility. Because now I'm a story carrier. What do I do with that story, Minister? It's a huge responsibility. I come home. I knew that the chairman of the United States Congress, of the Foreign Affairs Committee, was actually the congressman of my district in Orange County, California. Can you imagine the divine intervention at that moment? I told him. I showed him the pictures. And he said, "How bad is it?" I said, "It's bad. It's to the level of a genocide." We all know that the word genocide is a very, very big word. A word that has consequences, a word that can create so much impact if governments actually use that word, declare it, to shift things. The next day, I had organized, through Chairman Ed Royce, the U.S. congressional testimony on whether or not genocide would occur. And guess who we showed? Our young 14-year-old friend, Ikhlas's video. We showed her. And there she was with her finger. "Whether I live or whether I die, I'm going to save my sisters out of captivity." What did that do? It resulted in a unanimous vote in the United States Congress that genocide occurred. that against Yazidis and Christians and other religious minorities, ISIS was targeting them. They had a double vulnerability. They were women and they were religious minorities. That genocide resolution led to millions of dollars in aid for these people. A few months later, the UK Parliament decided to vote. When they voted without a story, remember the power of story, there was no story in the picture. When they voted just based on facts, legalese, the vote failed. It failed. They didn't want it. The next day, I was introduced to a BBC correspondent, and I told him the story of my friend. And what happened was BBC ended up doing a documentary that till today is the 16th most watched BBC News on YouTube channel. Millions of viewers have seen it. When this was going on, I got a phone call. If we have another vote, would you come back? Would you bring her? And would you bring other witnesses? So I said, yeah. Now, I was literally leaving London. I get the call once I arrive back to California. Can you get here tomorrow? How am I going to get here tomorrow? How? And how am I going to bring the witnesses? And I'm starting to think, witnesses. Who are the witnesses? Where are the stories? My mom, at the same time this was going on, divine intervention again, was in Syria. And she wanted to bring the stories out of the mothers and the daughters who were being targeted because of their faith, because of their Christian faith and their Druze faith. And she was bringing in stories of mothers whose children were actually being crucified because they would not change their name. She doesn't know why she's getting these stories out, except for the fact that she wants to bring awareness through her show. She doesn't know what's about to happen next. So she's capturing these stories. She's capturing them one by one. And she's on her way out, crossing the very dangerous border. And as she crosses out, they let her out with the hard drives, which is a miracle. It's an absolute miracle. You're talking about armies who are standing, confiscating these hard drives. She comes out, she gets a message on her cell phone. Do not go to America. You are going to London. You're going to testify in the UK Parliament. Do you have the hard drives? Do you have the videos? Let's get this going. So we bring the girl. Why? Because her story was on BBC, and the secretary, the foreign secretary, waived her visa. Power of story. What happened at the end? We testified with passion. Yeah, we use our skills, our legal skills, our TV skills, whatever. But at the end of the day, there is a message, there is a true story that transforms hearts and minds. And when you can transform hearts and minds, I promise you, it shifts everything. The parliament shifted. We went from a failed vote to a unanimous vote. 100% of everybody sitting in that parliament said, yes, we declare that genocide occurred. So today I encourage each one of you to know the power of story. Start with your own story. What is your story? And how can you use your story to shift the world? I call you to action. And I have one request today. I want you to meet her. Would you meet this young girl? If we can all stand up and go to the next room, there will be a short video shown of our beautiful girl. And always to remember, they're not numbers. They are faces. They are our daughters. They are our friends. And when we put a story to that, we can shift everything. So thank you all so much for this opportunity. And thank you, Minister. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rupa.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the power of stories and the power of government, it can really change the world. And we are bringing it all this together at World Women Council agenda. Thank you.